former Sixer coach, NBC Sports Philadelphia. Jim Lynam is with us now, and love to get his take on what he saw on that play last night and some other bizarre happenings in that game. Coach, welcome back. How are you?
How are you, fellas?
Doing really good. Now, I know that the NBA instituted that rule that you could check the tape there, but do you like the fact that they can check the tape to overturn the call? I'm okay with them checking to see if he was in the circle, but do you like the fact that they can actually change the call?
Well, it's interesting the way you presented it, Mike. The fact of the matter is you have to distinguish. They can only go to the tape to check whether the player was in or outside the line. That's the only reason they can go to the tape. They cannot go to the tape to determine whether it was a block or a charge. However, 2 years ago, they inserted like a rider clause, if you will, that if you go to the tape, meaning to check the line, then while you're there, you can check the other. And come on, let's be honest. Under let's use the current buzz phrase, transparency. You either are allowed to look at block charge or are not. And what the refs now do, and I would do the same thing to cover your own butt, on a play that took place 4 feet outside of the restricted area, everybody who was watched on TV, if you polled America, it would be 99.999% that he was outside the line, therefore no need to go to the tape. They go to the tape so they can then get the look at block charge. So you either have a rule that you can examine it or a rule that you can't. Please.
Yeah.
So if I were Tyrone Lue, if you saw his post-game comments on ESPN, I mean, he should have been more irate. Please. And it's not about whether the block charge call is right or wrong. It's a tough call. I mean, two guys who I respect immensely, one of whom played for me, Tim Legler, the other of whom, the official Steve Javie, lives 3 doors from me in Ocean City, literally.
Yeah.
So 2 guys who are friends and who are the best at what they do, they both disagreed on the call. So that's not the issue.
Exactly.
The issue is in today's world, let's follow rules, please. If you have rules, you have to follow them.
100%, because you just said it. One guy who was an official, he said one thing. A guy who was a player, he said another thing. There's no way you could look at that tape. It's like the NFL rule, Coach. There's not, definite evidence.
Isn't it a catch? Isn't it a catch?
Right. They don't have the evidence. Just isn't there to overturn that call.
Okay, watch. And I'm going to ask you 2 guys a question. Look, here's the analogy I drew, because this is something literally I've preached for 40 years. This is a very tough call. That was, by the way, the first words out of Javie's mouth when they asked him. All right, let's go to Steve Javie. And Javie said, this is a tough one, meaning it's a close play. It's a bang-bang play. All right, watch. I'm a big sports fan. I'm a basketball guru, expert, obviously. That's how I made my living for 50 years. However, sports fan doesn't mean I know these other sports. I don't know the intricacies of football. There's a phrase in baseball that I've heard since I've been a kid. Tie, throw out play, close play at the bag. Tie favors the runner. Have you ever heard the phrase?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I asked today a guy who's made his living in baseball for a long time. He said to me, yeah, and that's a criteria that an umpire, that's what they use. You ready? For me in basketball, tie, close your eyes. If you, in a split second, you with a whistle in your mouth, see a bang-bang play, a collision, and you're not sure, close your eyes, touch your hip, which means block. That was a block. Something that is a charge has to be definitive in your vision and mind, period,
Right.
For me. I've felt that way for 50 years. I've felt that way as a player.
So LeBron got screwed last night.
Well, I mean, you say what you will. I know one thing. Unless you tell me that's the rule, that I can go to the video to take a look whether it was block or charge or not. That's not the rule. If you don't change that rule, then you're right. LeBron got screwed. Yeah. They circumvented the current rule. They did it within the bounds of the law, meaning somewhat the way they do down in Washington, D.C. when they want to slip something in. They call it a rider, I think. Mm-hmm. To put in, they want to build the bridge, so they put it in with some other billion-dollar thing. No, I don't like. If you're going to do it, you do it head on. You tell me, are we allowed to put on the last 2 minutes to determine block charge? Either yes or no. Period.
Coach, you saw block. Javi saw charge, right?
Yeah, I agree with Legler. In a tough call, I think it was a block. Yeah. I took again because of the criteria. My criteria is if it's a charge, I ain't going to sit there and have to say play it again. Play it again. Do you have another angle? I know what a charge is. You know what a charge is. If we have to debate it, it's a block.
Didn't you see that?
Tie favors the runner.
Didn't you see that the two officials, like the guy that blew his whistle versus the crew chief or the supervisor, they weren't even in agreement almost immediately, right? I mean, you knew there was trouble.
Dead right. If you look at two different angles, you literally can see the mechanics is the word the refs use. The mechanics of the one guy, he's starting the motion charge. The mechanics of the second guy, different angle, is starting the point block. The mechanics are different for each of those two calls. And yes, they each had a separate call. That shows you how tough the call was. The whole point. Watch, in today's buzzword society, there's a phrase for this. It's called default position. You must have a default position for everything you do in life today. That's one of them. Default. Tie favors the runner. Come on.
Coach Jimmy Lynam is with us. All right. If you're on the sideline and your guy makes a free throw, is there a protocol in between that free throw? Or do you take for granted that the guy knows what to do if he gets an offensive board?
Well, that's obviously a timely, right-on-target question. And the answer to the question, in and outside of basketball, is the following. Be careful what you take for granted. Okay? By the way, that's an old, we call him Pa Lynam, who raised 11 of us Lynam. I was the oldest. That's a Pa Lynam line. Be careful what you take for granted. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
What is going through his mind? I mean, he said he said, you could read his lips. He said, I thought we were ahead. Then later on he says, I knew we were tied. I thought someone was going to call a timeout.
Yeah, he changed, obviously, to protect himself, he changed his story.
Okay. So my question is, does Lou, after the game's over, do you guys do you say to Lou, does Lou say to him, look, the media is going to ask, let's get on the same page with this. What are you telling me here? Or did they just go to the – you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. And at that point in time, like I would guess, picture the setting. Yeah. As a 10-1 underdog, you have a chance to steal the first game on the other guy's home court. You lost this game under these bizarre, you used the right word when we started this whole dialogue, bizarre. Who knows who said what in that locker room after the game, because this finale was so bizarre. I can't even begin to speculate. I don't know what I would have said. But in addressing what actually took place, obviously, it should have been reinforced what the situation was at that point in time, even if something so simplistic. If, in fact, JR, in his mind, says now after he changed his story, that he knew what it was, meaning a tie game, he would never have dribbled out in a tie game to waste 3 seconds, let's be honest. That's the last thing you would do. You might force a shot up or take a shot to try to get fouled, or you would take a timeout. There are only two things you can do if you know it's a tie game. So obviously he did not know it was a tie game.
Agreed. And then the final couple of minutes there, there's a couple of seconds there, you get the ejections, which a flagrant 2 was awarded on that. Isn't that, again, the referee needing to kind of understand the circumstance?
I would say yes. Yeah, and it's interesting in that, and I watched, as I said, ESPN after the fact, and they showed a number of angles of that play. And I really, at the end of watching it, I said, you know what? I don't think so. I think I should let it go. It didn't seem like it, almost like if nothing happened. But this morning at breakfast, I ran with some NBA people. They disagreed with me. Not that it was like vicious, violent. It was more an annoyance. But the rule really, you cannot throw an elbow at a guy. And did he in a little yes, they felt there was an elbow thrown. But I would lean with you. Like, this game is over. You know, like, come on, let it go. It was nothing so flagrant that a guy needed to be thrown out with 2 seconds to go.
All right. I'd like to sit at that breakfast with you guys sometime.
Yeah, sounds like a good one.
Coach Jimmy Lynam.
Yeah, but I will tell you, let me just add this one thing. This really does point out, I have it under the title of the following, EOGs, I call them, end of gamers. And you sit down with your coaching staff before every single get-together with your team, meaning where you're going to be out on a basketball court, whether it's a live practice or a walkthrough. And you must do at least one end-of-game, EOG, situation. And you debate, actually, and you don't put an end-of-game situation is not up 3 with 2:33 left on the clock. No. It's a situation with usually less than 24 seconds, sometimes significantly less. And obviously a foul shot situation is one of them. But the fact of the matter is, no matter who you are, you can't cover them all.
All right. And by the way, Coach is back in the game here a little bit, consulting with the Pistons for their new head coaching search.
Congratulations on that.
Ed Stefanski is the GM, and he will be working with Ed to try to find the next GM, the next head coach of the Detroit Pistons. So don't give him a good one, Coach.
Yeah, actually, both the Pistons need a head coach and they need a general manager. And they picked a good man in Ed Stefanski, who will kind of be in charge of the whole basketball side of the operation. And ironically, a fellow who was instrumental, who's a Philly person way back, by the name of Arn Tellem, who was one of the biggest agents in the business for years. And now he runs the business side of the Detroit Pistons. So 2 longtime friends will straighten this thing out.
Well, it looks like it.
In a hurry.
Meeting with, Dwayne Casey yesterday, and some reports that John Beilein, who is the old WVU, my alma mater, and now at Michigan. So some interesting names. And looks like Jeff Bauer have parted ways, as you just kind of alluded to there. So a lot of movement in Detroit that Coach will be a part of, helping them out. Don't help them too much, Coach.
No, these guys don't need a whole lot of help, trust me.
All right, Coach. Well, enjoy Game 2. We'll see if there's any other craziness happens, and if there is, we'd love to hear your insight.
All right, guys. Look forward. Game 2 not till Sunday, I believe. I don't like the fact we have to wait that long because that was really a tremendous game last night.
Right, especially considering there's no travel involved here, but I guess television rules the world. All right, Coach Jimmy Lynam here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, pal.
All right, guys. Good speaking.